Absolutely, not a problem. Hi, Casey.
Hi, Andy. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
So, Andy, why did you become an investigator?
Well, as Mike mentioned in the introduction, I arrived here in 1981. I was in my mid-20s and I had just passed an exam to join Strathclyde Police in Scotland. I got the opportunity to come to Australia and I went straight, I arrived in Sydney and I went straight to the Federal Police and applied to join them. During my interview, I was informed by a really friendly police officer that I would have to wait 2 years to become a citizen, as I had been as I was a permanent resident. And we got on very well. Ended up going for a beer at the end of the day. And when we departed, he slipped a note into my pocket, which was the name and address of an investigator in Sydney, and I took a job there, and the rest was history.
Wow, sliding doors moment.
It certainly was, and it was good because the police officer, while we were having a beer and a chat, I think what he was doing was just assessing me to see if I had what it would take to become an investigator. So he was actually interviewing me for the job, and then he phoned his contact and basically said, "Look, give the guy a go," and that's what happened.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what do you think it takes to be a good investigator after all of your years of fantastic experience?
Oh, look, ultimately, it comes down to what the client wants and how you satisfy the client's needs. But from a basic perspective, I think when I came to Australia, having been brought up in Glasgow, I was streetwise. I had an inquisitive nature, and I could a teacher saying, "Stop asking questions," and I was always wanted to know more about a subject, more about what was going on. So with those basic traits, and then with developed communication skills, and basically inboard perceptiveness, they're the basics to get you started. Then you need, a good mentor and experience. You can't just do it overnight. You can't become a good, solid, professional investigator overnight. It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just mentioned a mentor. Do you think it's important to look for a good mentor?
Yeah, it's critical. Look, there's a lot of good investigation companies out there, some real good, solid professionals that have been in the industry for a long time. If as a young investigator coming through, you can attach yourself to one of those types of people, they'll give you guidelines. I mean, I was lucky that I had an ex-ASIO chap, an ex-military guy, and a gentleman who had been the head of global risk for one of the major banks. And all three of them taught me different skill sets, from proper report writing to communicating with a client to doing the basic investigations on a job prior to even starting, doing the background. So those guys stood me in good stead for the future. And to this day, one of them unfortunately has passed away, but to this day, I'm still talking to two of those guys. One lives overseas and one lives in Melbourne, and they're still up and about. So I was very, very fortunate and always grateful to them for the help they gave me. So it is important. But for all the younger people or the people listening that are thinking about becoming an investigator or have just become investigators, latch on to somebody and don't be scared to ask them and hassle them to get what you want from a conversation.
That's fantastic. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate hearing that.
There'll be a lot of senior people saying, "Oh no, I don't want to help." But really, at the end of the day, in some ways, if you're running an investigation business or you're an owner, it's your responsibility to help bring them on, because the more you bring on an investigator, the more you'll get out of them, and the more it will benefit you in the long run. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that kind of builds on my next question is, how do you build a profitable investigation business?
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that one. But look, I remember I had a friend that said, "I'm starting my investigation business." I said, "Good luck." And he said, "How long before you think I'll be making decent money?" And I said, "Well, it depends what you think by what decent money is." But I said, to build a good client base, I would say it takes a minimum of 5 years, at which point he nearly fell over. But
Yep.
I found that the secret is it's great to have good slideshows and professional presentations, and you can go before a group of lawyers. You know, if you can get some of the big companies together and you get 10 lawyers in a room, or some of the banking organizations or the mining companies will listen to presentations. But maybe 1 in 20, 1 in 30 may be semi-successful. I've found that the best way to build a business is by personal referral. So the secret is to do a very professional job for a client. He in turn will talk to another member on the board and mention what's been done, and they'll then come to me and ask me for help. Usually it's a personal problem to start off with, and obviously people don't like to talk about their personal problems in public, they're discreet. So they want somebody that they know is discreet. So if they get a recommendation from a golfing buddy or a member of the same social club, then they're more likely to come to you than just phone you up out of the phone book. Advertising and in social media and whatnot is a way to get some of the business, but if you want the top end corporate work, it's far better to get it by referral. So I think, from my point of view, and in the type of investigations we have, referral has worked tremendously well for us.
Yeah, that's great. And this is going off on a bit of a different tangent, but Andy, how did it affect you as an investigator when you went blind?
I couldn't see. No. Well, what actually happened was it was around about 2000, early 2000s, and I was getting a sort of a fuzziness in my eyes, and I went to see a specialist, and the specialist said, "Look, I hate to tell you this, but it won't be long before you're totally blind. There's nothing we can do about it. It was just one of those diseases that there was no coming back from."
Yeah.
So, you go through the phases, like if you're told you've got a terminal illness, you can be sad, you can be angry, you can be emotional. So I went through a fair few, and then I realized that I had a family to support, and I thought, well, what else can I do? And the only thing I really knew to do well, believed I knew to do well, was be an investigator. So I was fortunate at that time. I had a young team around me. They were fairly dedicated, and they'd worked well together on a couple of fairly arduous tasks. So they became my eyes, and I became the knowledge base, and together we managed to work through till I retired in 2019 or thereabout, 2018.
Yeah.
So it was difficult. I'm not saying it was easy, but we worked through it. There was a few frustrating times, I must admit, but we got there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really admire your stoicism. It's amazing. And so you are currently writing or written a book. And so why did you write a book about your working life?
Well, it was interesting. When I retired, I went to the gym every morning and the pub every afternoon, and there was a big gap in between. And when you're blind, you can't really sit and watch a television show. You can listen to podcasts and listen to docos, but it soon wears thin. So I decided to write a book for my family. basically to tell him a bit about my life and some of the exciting jobs around the world that I had been involved in, and also from a bit about my history, because I investigated my past and found out quite a lot about my past, but also to inspire them that everything is achievable if you really try. And I mean, how crazy is it to be a blind private eye? It's ridiculous if you listen to it. So we rewrote the book. I had a poor young graduate who'd become an investigator through Mike's organisation. She typed the book, and we read it, and some of the family read it and said, "Look, this is good. We like it. You should put it to print."
Yeah.
And I kind of half approached a publisher, and they seized on it, and they said there hadn't been many books of this type written, and so they're going to go ahead, and I think it's going to be published and released by, I think, Father's Day this year. This year now, yeah. It was next year, but it's this year now. So yes, we're just about to get it underway, and we're going to start printing it, I think, in the next month or two.
That's amazing. I can't wait to read it. It's just one of those things where we're in that industry where it is a private industry, and there's just not many books out there. And I'm just so grateful that you're writing a book and you've got all of your amazing stories from your life to add to the interesting jobs and your stoicism and your knowledge. It's fantastic. It'll be great.
It's been written with a little bit of a sense of humour, and
Yeah.
I hope that anybody who reads it isn't dismissive of me because I've got a sense of humour. But in this line of business, you see some tragic things, and you've got to have a sense of humour. I think it helped me to have a sense of humour to get through it, especially when I lost my vision, and you know, people would describe things to me, and I had to quickly work out the best way to present the result to the client. So it's ups and downs, it's tragic points, it's happy points, and I think it's a fair insight into investigations at the, you know, the partnership, husband and wife level, work cover level, and also top end crime and sex trafficking of children and whatnot. So it covers a fairly broad spectrum, and that's why we decided that it would be better to make each chapter different.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, you'll definitely have to keep us updated about the print and when it's printed, and yeah, really looking forward to it. And I'm sure a lot of people that watch this show will grab a copy as well.
Well, I might even give Mike a signed copy.
I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
Sure he will.
Fantastic. Okay, well, that's all the questions I have, and I know that we will definitely get you back on and pick your brain even further. So thank you so much for your time today, Andy. I really appreciate it.
Listen, it's a pleasure. It's the first time we've spoken, and hopefully we'll talk again in the future. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And first, and lastly, I'd like to say good luck to all those young investigators out there that are just coming out and getting into the workforce. Good luck to you all.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, just a couple of things. What you said about people have personal tragedies and personal issues when they come to an investigation agency. It's amazing what you see that repeats and repeats over and over again. But what we're seeing coming out, and especially Stacey's side with what she does, is an enormous amount of people being ripped off through Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, that sort of thing. And it's forever evolving what we do, because the police aren't interested in you losing, you know, $100,000 worth of Bitcoin in South Australia if you lost it in Czechoslovakia with an investment over. They can't do anything. So that we're finding that they're coming to us as private investigators, because the police can do nothing. So that's been a really interesting development in the last 2 years, and Casey's seen it firsthand, haven't you, Casey?
Yeah, it's kind of devastating to hear some of the stories because they're very sophisticated. It's just a new level of fraud that I
think that from 1981 to today, the police have a different view of investigators, and the training courses and the subsequent courses that you guys provide can really help give us that professional outlook. And the police are working with us a lot more nowadays than they used to. And we find that we do a lot of sort of litigation support for the police, and with like crime, for example, we will put a brief together that's very professional, we'll give it to the police, and they'll go ahead and prosecute. So we find that most police departments nowadays will work with us rather than in the old days they would look upon us and say, "Oh, no thanks." So that does alter things a lot. And one of the things as well is that I've heard it so many times from so many clients. They start a conversation by saying, "Now look, I want to talk about something that kept me awake all of last night." So it's the things that keep them awake at night they come to the investigator for. And that's why the book was called Problem Solved, because basically an investigator will solve the problem. And with the loss of money like that, $100,000, you've got to ask yourself, well, could that person afford to lose the $100,000? If they could afford to lose the $100,000, how much are they prepared to pay to get it back? And first of all, you do the due diligence to see, is it even worthwhile going forward to try and get it back? Or can you get 5 or 6 or 7 other people who have also lost a lot of money, and then you work as a cartel for all of them? But it's a very, very interesting point you make, and crime's definitely changing very rapidly.
Yeah, that's some fantastic points.
Andy, to celebrate the establishment of your book, we've brought out an Australian Security Academy coffee mug. It's a replica coffee mug to celebrate your book, and we're going to actually give one away to someone that's watching today. These are very expensive coffee mugs. I think they cost me about $23 each and $15 to post, so I'm very frugal about how I go about it. So I've got one and I'm holding it up so people can see it, and I've put up a few photos of it. We've called it our coffee mug, so we don't rip off the book's name, which is Problem Solved, the Blind Investigator. We've called the coffee mug Insight, the Blind Investigator. If you'd like to win this coffee mug, put in the comments over in the comments section. That was great, Andy, and I'll send you a coffee mug. That's only for people that do it today.
First of all, should I salute you? Say thank you, but there's always a word out there that the Scotsmen are mean, miserable people and tight with their money. Mike, I think you wouldn't have had one printed. I'm sure there's more you could give away to the people.
No, that'll cost me a fortune, mate. How many do you want to give away?
I think we'll give away 10 or a dozen. I think
that So on behalf of Andy, anybody who out there, if a dozen of you want a coffee mug, type in the comment section, "That was great, Andy," and I will send you at my expense if I'm still in business, thanks to Andy. Oh, great, mate. Really.
Don't worry, guys. He'll get his pound of flesh from me at some stage. I know that for sure.
Cancel all future appointments with Andy Chambers, please, Casey. Take back my dollar. All right, I'll honour Andy's offer. Anybody who types in the comment section there, great work, Andy. Send me your postal address. This is just for people that do it today. It's not in the replay. I will send you an Australian Security Academy Insight, the Blind Investigator coffee mug, which these are great coffee mugs. They are waterproof to 10 fathoms. You can use them to send Morse code. Hear that? They're very good for sending Morse code. And if you need to escape from cable ties, just smash it and cut your way through the cable ties. So very handy little private investigator accessory that Andy's just given away 12 of at my expense.
And let's hope it holds 50 as well.
Yeah, you'll be hearing from my solicitor.
Take care, guys.
Now, just one more question, Andy.
Yeah.
Today you still have an overseeing role in investigation. So even though you said you retired, you didn't really fully retire, did you?
Well, look, I'm basically out of it. It's an interesting point, though. My son took over the Pinkerton side of the business, and that's the first time there's been a father and son relationship in Pinkerton since, I think, 1850, when the original owner, Alan Pinkerton, handed the business over to his son. I think it was Robert Pinkerton, way back in the day. So it's been 150 years of the organisation since a father and son team ran the business. So he's
wow,
basically
that's amazing.
Yeah, I've stepped off the side.
So your son Adam, who's been involved in that business for quite some time, what's his role now, please, Andy?
Well, he's funnily enough, he's just been appointed. He was the managing director for Australia, and he reported to the regional director in Singapore. But what happened yesterday, I believe, was he was given a promotion, and he is now the regional director for South Asia, Australia, and the Pacific Islands. So he's got that. There's an American chap who's become the regional director for North Asia. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Congratulations, Adam, and congratulations, Andy. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be happy wherever he is.
You won't be seeing much of him, I don't think, with that responsibility. That's great.
No,
that's really good news.
I don't know whether his wife's happy or sad about that. I'll have to have a chat with her. It was nothing to do with me, so I'm out of jail on that one.
Yeah, you're just too busy giving away expensive coffee mugs to be worried about promoting people into busy jobs. I know that.
Yeah. We'll get on to the crystal glasses next, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Andy, it's always a pleasure. It really is great to see. I can't overemphasize, if you haven't got a sense of humour in this industry, like Andy said, you are really going to struggle with it. Whenever I go to visit Andy in Melbourne and his team down there, the red carpet rolls out and there's more time spent laughing than there is doing business. And it's just a great pleasure to see that. We're not in the funeral directory business. We're in the answers business. And to stay sane, you've got to have some fun and, really enjoy passionately your work. And I think every one of our members of the Academy of Investigation, Risk and Loss Adjusting Professionals has seen that firsthand from a person who's operated professionally in the industry since 1981. He came into it, as you heard, without planning to do that, and built his business over time. And the Pinkerton brand in Australia is highly respected because of Andy's work, and we really appreciate having you on today, Andy.